For 80 years, one currency has ruled the world, the US dollar. It's the money the planet trades oil in, saves in, and runs to whenever things get scary. About 90% of all currency trades involve it. But right now, a quiet war is being waged against the dollar's crown. Central banks are stockpiling gold at the fastest pace in modern history. Rival nations are building ways to trade around it. And a single decision in 2022 may have started a slow-motion exit. Is the dollar actually dying? The honest answer is more interesting than the headlines. First, why the dollar even wears the crown. After World War II, the world tied its money to the dollar and the dollar to gold. That gold link is long gone, but the habit stayed. The dollar became the world's reserve currency, the money other governments hold in their vaults. Today, around 57% of all the reserves central banks hold are in dollars. It's used in nearly half of global payments and about 90% of foreign exchange trades. When a company in Brazil buys from a company in Japan, they often deal in dollars. That's the power. The whole world keeps score in America's money. So, what started the war? In 2022, after the invasion of Ukraine, the US and its allies froze around $300 billion of Russia's reserves almost overnight. To Washington, it was a powerful sanction. But to dozens of other governments watching, it was a wake-up call. If the dollars in your vault can be switched off by a decision in another country, then those dollars aren't fully yours. For the first time, holding dollars started to look like a risk, not just a convenience. And countries began, quietly, to look for an exit. Here's the clearest sign of the shift. Gold. For 3 years running, central banks have bought over 1,000 tons of gold a year, a pace not seen in generations. Why gold? Because it's the one reserve asset no other country can freeze, print, or switch off. It's nobody's promise. Emerging nations are leading the charge, and gold's share of their reserves has climbed sharply. When the people who manage countries' savings quietly trade dollars for gold year after year, they're telling you something about which one they trust for the long haul. At the same time, rivals are building alternatives. China is pushing to settle more trade in its own currency, the yuan, and building its own payment networks to bypass the dollar-based system. The BRICS group of nations keeps floating the idea of trading more in local currencies. The goal isn't to instantly replace the dollar, it's to chip away at it, to make sure that if relations sour, their economies aren't hostage to someone else's money. Drip by drip, deal by deal, the monopoly is being nibbled at the edges. But here's the reality check, because the dollar's death is wildly exaggerated. The dollar still dominates. Around half of all global payments, about 90% of currency trades, the vast majority of trade finance. The euro is a distant second. China's yuan, despite all the noise, is still only a couple of percent of global reserves. And there's a deeper problem for the challengers. You can't dethrone a king with no successor. No rival currency is open, trusted, and liquid enough to take the dollar's place. The world isn't abandoning the dollar. It's slowly buying insurance against it. So what does a slow erosion actually mean? Probably not a crash, but a gradual change. If the world holds fewer dollars over decades, the US could find it slightly more expensive to borrow, and its financial power, the ability to sanction and set the rules, could soften over time. For the rest of the world, it could mean a more fragmented system, several currencies and gold sharing a job the dollar used to do alone. It's less a sudden collapse, more a tide going out slowly over many years. So here's the honest picture. The dollar isn't dying, but for the first time in a lifetime, the world is actively hedging against it. Not because a rival is winning, but because trust, once taken for granted, now has a price. The story of the next few decades may not be the dollar's collapse. It may be the slow, quiet end of the dollar as the only game in town. And the clearest signal isn't in the headlines. It's in the gold quietly piling up in vaults around the world. 3 things to remember. 1, the dollar still rules, about 57% of reserves and 90% of currency trades. 2, freezing Russia's reserves in 2022 made the world treat dollars as a risk, and central banks have been buying record gold ever since. 3, no rival can replace the dollar yet, so this is a slow erosion, not a collapse. The king isn't dead, but for the first time, the world is shopping for insurance. Quick disclaimer, This is for education and information only, not financial or political advice. Figures are best estimates that change over time, so always do your own research. If this made the dollar story finally make sense, hit like and subscribe to Innovana. We break down how money and power really work every week. See you in the next one.